But we'll start by the good matchup out west in Denver and Phoenix. And I want to start with you, Gabe, because you've been the one who has been really high on Devin Booker on the pod over the last few weeks and the last few months. And obviously, he's been playing out of his mind as of late because he's had to for this Phoenix team. And he's a big reason why they've been able to have as much success as they've had, even though Denver are still up 2-1. He's been a big reason why they've been as competitive as they have been. And so I'll pass it off to you first to see what you think about the Suns as a whole, but also give your props to Devin Booker because he's been absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I think this is just more fuel to the fire of saying that he's clearly the best shooting guard in the league. I don't think there's anybody that's doing the things he's doing at the efficiency he's doing it. No matter what team they're against, no matter what matchup he has, it feels like he's always able to score at will. And you rarely see an off night from him. However, things do not look great for the team as a whole. Looking at Game 3, yeah, they basically saved their season by being able to get that one and not going into an 0-3 hole. But at the same time, it took, 86 combined points from, two players? And I don't think you can rely on that to win you 4. I do like that they made a little bit of adjustments and are trying different guys in the lineup. Seeing TJ Warren minutes was pretty cool. Landry Shamet still getting 25. I don't know what kind of blackmail he has. We've been talking about it for weeks at this point, but hopefully they can kind of figure out who's working in this matchup and who isn't, and maybe try to salvage that as much as possible to get as much outside production. But I don't think Devin Booker and KD can do this 4 times in a row. Game 2 still stayed competitive, and so that was a little bit closer. So things have been getting better for the Suns as the series goes on. It's just the way they won doesn't really give me a lot of confidence going forward. And I'll save the DeAndre Ayton rant for somebody else, but we're going to need a little bit more from him too.
I don't know if it's worth even speaking about him angrily anymore. He just is what he is at this point. We can't really expect too much out of him. The adjustments by Monty were cool for Game 3, but like you said, Gabe, you can't really expect this kind of production from Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, to win 4 games in this series. It's just not really, attainable. You can't really rely on guys heavily that much. And it just reminds me a lot of how Devin Booker had to go off early in the season for this team to be competitive. And he's having to do it in the postseason as well. Even though they were playing different guys off the bench, I know Devin's probably going to mention the Torrey Craig, how he's just not getting minutes anymore, which is just so confusing. But there's still not really too much consistency with the guys that are coming off the bench. It worked in Game 3. Obviously, role players are going to play better at home. That's always just an unwritten rule in playoff basketball. So it was an unimpressive win. Devin Booker's amazing, but that's a game that Denver can concede, and they look pretty, solid in that game. Jamal Murray shot terrible in the fourth quarter, and they still had a chance to win that contest. So, and Aaron Gordon played pretty poor the first half. I think Denver will be fine. I still think a lot of pressure is on Phoenix tonight to win this Game 4, more so than Denver needs to get this dub. So I don't know what adjustments Monty's going to continue to make. He's been kind of just so iffy this postseason, and maybe it's just because just how their depth is just not trustworthy, especially once it gets to the postseason. So I don't know. Devin Booker though, like you said, Gabe, he's easily the best shooting guard in the league. I don't think that's a question. He should be at the top of our list once we get to the offseason ranking. So it's been a joy to watch him in the postseason.
Definitely. That's not debatable at this point. He's been ridiculous and is the only reason they've been anywhere near as competitive as they have been. But like you guys alluded to, the way that the Suns won Game 3 was not very encouraging. It just definitely looks like a team that is going to struggle the rest of the way through the series, and maybe they get it to 6, but I don't think it goes any further than that. And at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if this is done in 5. Denver just looks like the better team, and the Suns look like a 2-man unit. And even though KD has been good, and this is honestly more so of a knock on the Suns as a whole than it is on KD, they just need him to be better to win. And that's not because he's been bad. He just hasn't been elite. He's just been good, which is not what the Suns need right now. When they have the depth performing the way they've had it performing this postseason, KD and Booker both need to be elite tier players night in and night out. And KD has just been good. And that just simply isn't going to be good enough for them. And unfortunately, that's just the situation they're in right now. And at least, like you guys alluded to, they did roll out a few different guys off the bench in Game 3 because at this point, you just have to try something. The weird thing, like you mentioned, Tyrik, is that they've gone from their one complimentary guy who was playing well to then just not including him in the rotation at all or very minimally, which is very odd. I mean, he was at times arguably the third best guy on the floor at times for the Suns in the first round. And now he has just completely disappeared from going heavy minutes in your starting lineup to 2 minutes a night in game 3. It just doesn't make sense. I recognize that since game 3 of the first round, he hasn't been playing as well, but at least he's solid on the defensive end. You got a guy in Landry Shamet out there who's playing 25 minutes a night who ain't shooting the ball well and ain't giving you much on defense either. So it definitely seems a bit questionable where the rotations are at parts, but at least he's trying to get a few different guys involved at this point because, like we've been saying for the last few weeks now, the bench just hasn't been working. Maybe TJ Warren gives him a few more productive minutes moving forward, but they're definitely in a tough spot because it just doesn't seem like anything's going to change. We keep having the same conversation about the Suns' depth. Booker's been great. KD's been good, but it just hasn't been enough production from the other guys. And when Chris Paul's out for a bit of time now, that's hurting. And like we mentioned, DeAndre Ayton just hasn't been good enough. And he needs to be that guy for them, especially with Chris Paul out. We can talk about their bench all they want, but they don't even have their third guy. And that's arguably the biggest problem with this team. And we've talked about it time and time again, and it's just becoming more and more clear this postseason is that Ayton has talent, but he does not showcase the level of compete and the work ethic night in, night out on the basketball court that you need to have success in this league, especially in the postseason and especially as a center. And ultimately, that's going to really hurt him and the Suns come playoff time. And that's why we're getting Jock Landale playing the majority of a fourth quarter because Jock Landale didn't outplay him. Jock Landale just got given the minutes because Ayton played himself out of the game. And that's no slight on Jock Landale. He was fine, but it was also clear that Jokic was having some fun with him on the offensive end, to say the least. And Jokic has just been elite. Jamal Murray's been quite solid through a majority of this series, despite his poor shooting in game 2. Game 1 and 3 has been good. Aaron Gordon's been good for the majority of the series. This Denver team just has multiple guys contributing, whilst also having someone who's playing just as well, if not better, than Devin Booker. And ultimately, Suns are just in a spot where they're just not the better team. They got 2 dudes and then a bunch of guys who aren't really contributing that much.
Yeah, I viewed this roster as like kind of a 4-man power trip, and then the rest of the roster was just going to be like whatever. But now it's like you're down that third guy, and the fourth guy just, 4 points in a must-win playoff game, it doesn't cut it at all. And at that point, when you're down him, like with production-wise, if then Chris Paul's not even in the game, now you're just putting everything on your 2 main guys, and I feel like that'll just run them into the ground. Like KD having to go out and not only be the all-time scorer he is, but also putting up a damn near triple-double, 8 assists, 9 rebounds. It's like you can't put that all on one guy. Devin Booker having to go out, and he's having to drop 50 and almost get double-digit assists because it's just with no Chris Paul now, there's no playmaking, and they're just kind of all over the place now. And you look on the other side, and it's like Jokic put up 30, 17, and 17, and he was just chilling. Like it wasn't even that hard for him. And for him to have that game and the Nuggets lose, like that's surprising. But a guy like Jokic, I feel like, not saying he'll replicate that, but I think he can put up stat lines close to that, like night in, night out, especially if they're going to defend him the way they are, which is not very well at all.
Yeah, exactly. I just think, Devin really hit it on the head. Like Denver's just looked like the better team. They're deeper. Their top-end talent is playing just as well, I would say, as the Suns duo. And they're coached better. Like Michael Malone has to get his credit. I think he's really coaching a really good series. And I don't know, like prediction-wise, but I'm expecting them to like really come out with a different game plan and like try and slow Devin Booker down because he's been getting it off for sure. And if they can stop Book tonight, this series is probably over in 5, like Devin said. So definitely been a masterclass from Denver, and they're proving us wrong. They've looked like the most solid team probably in the Western Conference this postseason.